We did not, Michael Goldstein was not here yesterday and Judy Frank was not here yesterday. Are they here today? Do we see Michael Goldstein or Judy Frank? Okay. I don't hear anything.
I wasn't here either yesterday.
Neither of them are here.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Josh.
Mhm.
Thank you. So we move on to, let's see. Krutman, Marilyn Michon.
Harold,
Yeah,
Michael had said last week that he's moving, and it may
right.
be a week or so until he gets the internet connected.
Oh, okay, okay. Monica Raymond, is Monica here? Well,
Everybody's watching the trial.
I know. Is Sue
No, Monica.
Rosansky here? Sue? Do we see Sue?
Sue is here.
Okay, so Sue will be our first reader today, and my able associate Annika will look for the others and we will backtrack as appropriate. All right, so Sue.
What psalm are we on?
16. We're
Still
doing
on 16. Okay.
we're still on 16.
So Sue Rosansky? Did you say Sue was here?
She's on the list of participants.
Sue Rosansky, make yourself known, as they say. Huh. All right. Well, Ira Rosenblum.
Okay, I am here. And I will read this for you. It's titled Wall of Fire. Like Dante facing the blazing wall of fire, my soul is gripped with fear. The flames are blinding, the heat suffocating, an inferno so fierce that to get any closer would mean total incineration and reduce me to a heap of ash and bone. I cannot see what awaits on the other side. Is it hell? Is it paradise? Will I find my Beatrice? Standing here, frozen in fright, will surely be my doom. I must propel myself into the flames. There is no other way out. This will be my purification or my certain death. Please protect me.
Wow, Ira, and this is so different for you. So talk to us. Tell us about Psalm 16 and Ira Rosenblum.
Okay, yeah, it's very different. You'll notice immediately that it's not haiku. And I actually told Harold yesterday that I was reconsidering whether I wanted to even read this to the class because it feels like it's very dark in many ways, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to share that darkness, but Harold kind of convinced me. So I think, you know, that for the past several months, I've been feeling like I'm in some kind of purgatory, that I'm up against the edge and I just can't get myself to the other side. So this whole idea of the wall of flame from Dante's Divine Comedy really resonated with me. And I was listening to a podcast last week of On Being. Krista Tippett was interviewing it. She was rebroadcasting a podcast with three people who were talking about depression. And one of them, who is a Jewish Buddhist teacher, referenced this canto from Purgatorio, and it really, really resonated with me. So I was playing with that idea of Dante was brought by Virgil up through hell, up the mountain of purgatory, and he was facing this wall of fire and could not get himself to go through. And the only thing that finally enabled him to go through was Virgil telling Dante that Beatrice was on the other side and that she would lead him into Paradiso. So, and then, the Psalm 16 piece of it for me was, the piece of Psalm 16 that really sits very deep with me is the protect me, protect me from fear. For
Yeah.
I place my, that was when I read the Fisher version and you asked me why, what was my resonance with it. I said I could stop right there. Protect me from fear.
Yep. Yep.
And so this for me is about that. It's about protection and my really longing to be able to get onto the other side of this wall of fire.
Ira, this is magnificent, and thank you, Harold, for convincing you to do this publicly. As I keep saying, the authentic feelings, the authentic reactions, the profound ones that come from the center where truth exists is all that matters. And putting it into a creative form, to take that darkness and make beauty out of it is in itself a response, right? I mean, that's, by either making something that's so terrifying and then creating this beautiful piece of art that helps the rest of us. We all feel these things, Ira. There are a moment, nobody is immune to these feelings. And so to have someone else express them with this level of beauty leaves us in tears. And that's the human connection to the divine, is being connected to each other, feeling like your soul has something deep. Do you know what I mean? That reflects us. And yeah, we all go through this. No, we're not living in easy times, and we're not Pollyanna about it. And so all this rainbow of feelings that are real reflect all of us. And then we get courage from hearing it said out loud.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I really wanted to talk about this a little too.
Yeah, I don't want to, I mean, it just, I love this painting by William Blake, this drawing, which is showing, some angel leading Dante through the wall of fire. And I thought it was very beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And so I just included it with my psalm.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
All right. I have noticed that Sue Rosansky is back in the room. So Sue,
Sorry about that.
okay,
Yeah.
we kept your place.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Please, God, protect me from fear of the unknown, of what will be. Keep me from the pit, that pit of internal terror. Let me see it ahead of me, for I cannot avoid what I cannot see, so that I can step gingerly around it. And when I fall in, help me to see the light above and climb back out. Indentations on the walls from the last time I dug my boots in. May those indentations become deeper, like steps, a well-worn path up and out. Or were the steps always there, just too hard for me to see? Please, help me to not pull those I love into the pit with me. Let me see clearly where I am, who I am, and what effect my actions have on others. And a question, how do I develop a faith in you so that I could always feel your presence with me? That would be wonderful. Eagerly awaiting your reply.
Beautiful, Sue. Talk to us.
I'm not sure what to say.
Tell us about the process of writing it from Psalm 16.
Yeah, sure. No problem. I guess there were a couple of things that really struck me about in reading the psalm itself. One was the business about wishing bad things for people who believe in other gods. I mean, I just did not like that. And in fact, in the Chavruta that we had, we spent a lot of time, or I talked about that, and sort of the issues that marrying somebody who was not Jewish had on my life, you know, the implications. And there was a lot of discussion in there about that. But somehow when I sat down to write about it, that's not what came out. I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't. But also when I read it, the pit, I mean, that it's an image that I've had in my mind for a long time. I mean, so as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, the pit. I know that pit, or a pit. So so I guess that's what I wrote about. And also just the idea of reading the Psalm, that the person feels like, oh, God is with me. God, you know, I will whatever at my right hand, and things, you know, I will be able to sleep at night. And, you know, I thought, gee, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
I would really like that. And you know, I don't have that kind of faith in God or a God. I don't even know that I believe in God. So it's something though that you know, I'm a little envious of, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Which is totally Jewish and totally part of our tradition. And this kind of demand of God by your end with eagerly waiting your reply could be written by a medieval rabbi. That this is not, you are well in the tradition of Jews and of Jewish tradition of being disappointed in God or angry at God or demanding more from God and not being satisfied. So you're in good tradition. And isn't it interesting how we're all reacting somewhat differently to this issue of the other as it's described here?
Yeah.
We're thinking about it in pluralism and multi-faith and our values of multi-faithism or pluralism. We have one reaction. If we think about it as, you know, as one of those white supremacists who were banging, you know, destroying the Capitol to get into the building, we might think a little differently about it. And it's really kind of the prism through which we see what does it mean. And I think there have been some fantastic explorations of that the differences in this class, and even Judy Hollander, who put it in the voice of the Proud Boys to challenge us. I love that. But I really love this question: how do I develop a faith in you so that I can always feel your presence with me? That would be wonderful. It's like, okay, but it's not my reality. I love this, Sue, and it is totally Jewish to write like this. So you've added another important voice to this Jewish tradition of saying, you know what? I don't feel your love and your embrace, and it would be wonderful if I did, but guess what? I need some help, but it's not happening for me right now. And the use of the pit as the image of this terror, of this place of being very, very far from a place of being comforted or a place of being surrounded by comfort, is also so powerful and very, very, very deeply Jewish. And it's an image that I hold too, and I can, and you've, by even by exploring that as your image of the place of terror, is really very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, let's say, how many of us in this class can respond to this? Please help me to not pull those I love into the pit with me. Right? Like sometimes the best thing we can hope for is that we don't destroy, we don't bring other people down with us, right? We know that feeling. So you've expressed there, Sue, something that I think is a deeply held fear, that it's not only about ourselves going into the pit. Sometimes our big fear is how that affects the people we love the most. So beautiful, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy Frank.
And Sue, I might say about your response that that wasn't the piece you wrote. That's the thing about being creative, right? Whatever you sit down in one day to write, the next week it might be totally different, and that's okay. That's good. There are many different ways to respond.
Yeah.
Thank you. Judy Frank, you are here? You
Okay.
messaged me that you were here?
Yes, here I am. Now I
Hi,
know.
Judy.
Hi, I have an explanation. I'll read the poem first. Now I know that it is you, God, to whom I rely on for my protection and goodness. While I once desired to acknowledge other names for my own characteristics, I now think my entire being has always been following your plans for me. As you walk before me, having given me my destiny, you keep me happy and secure. I bless you, knowing you will always be there for me at my right side. And I know inside you will always protect me from Sheol as I stay always joyful in your loving presence.
Beautiful. Okay, Judy, speak to us.
Well, I find what I always leave out, the fear and the trembling, uh, means something to me, my inner being that I haven't figured out yet. Yeah. At any rate, so and then that was my acknowledging when I once desired to acknowledge other names, my own characteristics, is what God and me know that I have practiced Tibetan Buddhism for many years, and the names or the different people of the different characteristics that are in you, like the white Tara, green Tara, olive
Uh-huh.
Tara,
Uh-huh.
Chenrezi, and all the other beings, Mahakala. You see pictures of in Tibet, and they've heard of the deities, but the whole idea of meditation is that they go into you, that they're not separate from you, they're part of you, actually, in meditation, that the prayers that you do, they become part of you, your being. So I was sort of like wondering, apologizing that I think now maybe that was part of his plan, that I had to go through that to become a better Jew, because a lot of people have said they studied other traditions like Tibetan Buddhism and then they go back to their own religion. I had a friend who did that with Catholicism, but only she asked the Lama to take back the vows, and he said, I can't do that. So I figure we have Yom Kippur where we get rid of our vows. It's work we have to do inside us.
Mhm.
Nobody could take out thou back for us, is what he really told her. I gave you the teachings. I can't take it away from you. It's you work you have to do. So I guess that's the work I have to do, is trying to see if God will forgive me for those years that I practiced Tibetan Buddhism in a not so diligent way. Let's put it that way. I became just as lax as I was with Judaism at one point. So,
Well, I like to think that our lives are paths that every turn on them teach us things that we need to learn. And I don't quite see it in such a binary way. I think that God is found everywhere. As the Baal Shem Tov would say, Melo chol haaretz kavodo, that God's presence is found everywhere. And sometimes we have to go on different paths to experience it because of who we are, whatever our backgrounds are, whatever the nature of our souls are. And I don't see that you have to reject one in order to embrace the other, and that you might find scandalous coming from a rabbi. But I think Tibetan Buddhism has a lot to teach, and that God is there too, and it's not one or the other. So I think I think the problem has been that from my perspective, is that Judaism has been experienced by so many as insipid and empty and a bunch of empty motions, and so religions that have provided spirituality when Judaism has seemed empty has been that's important, and I think it's up to Judaism to prove, as I believe it does. So I'm not nervous about this. I think Judaism has as much deep spiritual truth as any other tradition, but I think sometimes Judaism has done a very bad job, and Judaism in America has done a terrible job at giving people spiritual depth and meaning and content, and and so people have looked elsewhere. So I think it's on Judaism too, but I also think those things that you've learned in other places, like for instance, I think that one of the reasons the LGBT community is so open to the spiritual work of Jewish life is because of the 12-step program, that so many of us are in recovery and have gone through a spiritual, which one could argue even has Christian roots. I know that Jewish 12-step stuff works hard to get away from it, but you take the truth you've learned in one place and bring it into Judaism. That's really good. I don't experience that as a problem. So I don't think you have anything to apologize for, Judy, and bring it with you.
Okay. Will
All
do.
right. Doc, Randy.
Hi, good morning. I wrote a Psalm 16 as a psalm in memory of Jeffrey Weiss.
Mm.
A psalm for Jeffrey. My heart is darkened and my pulse is subdued with sadness. Our ark lost a bright light, one that filled those around him with joy and blessings. He was kind to all people, practiced tikkun olam, gave tzedakah, and was resolute to stand up to injustice. Darkness follows. Our community is no longer whole, as a link in our chain has been broken. For you will not abandon his soul. He now dwells on your holy mountain. We were blessed with his presence, however fleeting. His light will continue to shine in each of us.
Beautiful, Randy. Talk to us about writing this. Some of it's quite obvious, but let's hear. And is there a relationship here to Psalm 16 in particular?
Well, as I sat down to write Psalm 16, normally I go line per line, try to really get the essence. And I decided to do what you had mentioned a few times, which is find a jump off point.
Uh-huh.
And it was the verse with the heart, and I kind of reversed it. And from there is where it jumped off. Last week was a very tough week for me. I had 2 funerals in 4 days. We were all hit real hard by the sudden loss of Jeffrey. And
Yeah.
it just kept sitting with me and sitting with me.
Beautiful.
And so when I sat down, I decided this is the approach that I wanted to take in his
Beautiful.
memory.
Fantastic. And really, in some ways, Psalm 16 will, for those of you who have that, will forever be connected with Jeffrey's death. So whenever you read Psalm 16, given that that's the psalm of the week of his death and his funeral, and through that whole snowstorm and how it got spread out, Psalm 16 in some ways was the psalm of that week. So this is beautiful, Randy. And you know how beautiful it is that we have the video that Harold made, so that there's a tribute to him that people can watch again and again if they would like to see him and the music he loves so much. So thank you, Randy. This is really beautiful.
Thank you.
And what a beautiful thing to remember to do with your sadness when something like that happens, to write a psalm, to recite psalms and to recite a psalm. And thank you again for Randy for what you did during Shmira for him.
I needed to do something, and I got to tell you, until CBST, I've never done any of that. And it was such a blessing and such a privilege. And I did feel close to Jeffrey and everyone in that room, and even closer to CBST. So, you know, you talked earlier about Judaism not being spiritual enough. That's definitely not the case here at CBST. You do a great job of that.
I do believe Judaism is spiritual, but I think that in many of our experiences, in Judaism has been the heart and soul of Judaism has been ripped out in the Americanized suburban synagogues that many of us grew up in, and even the urban synagogues. But so yeah, that's what we're trying at CBST, is to get to the depth. Thank you, Randy.
So we have a suggestion that was just texted to me that we just take a breath between offerings. It's because they're so beautiful and heartfelt before going on to the next one. So let's take our breath after Randy's offering and think of Jeffrey. And then let's move on to Alice Sales.
Hi. I think we're all thinking about death today. Mine is, it's not titled Inspired. I think I wrote Inspired by Psalm 16.
Okay.
I
well,
don't
take
feel
that direction.
inspired. But anyway.
We're in real time here.
Okay, thank you. To whom do I pray? From whom do I seek protection? The vast expanse of the universe is my God. It doesn't protect me from mistakes or sorrow or even from enemies, but it gives me meaning, I am part of it all. In Australia, I remember the night sky is vivid. I saw the splendor of 1,000,000 stars. No protection, but such a comfort. Its beauty gives me strength. Life is over so quickly. I don't wish anyone sorrow. Defective or perfect, weak, strong, we are all in this great expanse together.
Mm.
We are part of the stars, some shining from long ago. They no longer exist, but we all see their light. So much unknown, still such a blessing, vast and beautiful, especially at night.
Mm. Mm. Gorgeous, Alice. Speak to us.
Thank you. I think I'm always trying to figure out who I believe or what I believe, or I'm very uncomfortable with the word God. And when people talk about getting comfort and protection from God or knowing God, or it's nothing that I can relate to. So I think that's how it started out.
Yeah.
And all the Psalm 16 with I'm at your right hand, God, and you protect me and you tell me, you help me. And I don't relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I just was trying to think, what do I believe? But I think when I looked at it this morning, after not looking at it for a couple of days, I thought this is a poem about dying, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really God. It's really just life and death thoughts, rather than thoughts about how to love or act in this world right now. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. And I would challenge you in that by saying the vast expanse of the universe is my God, that is God, so to speak. The problem is the word God, because I don't know that God protects us in the way that you're imagining, that it's a very superficial kind of protection. But I do, for my personal belief, that it gives me meaning. I am part of it all, meaning that the universe that you imagine is God, I think is God. I don't think, I think that it's a little bit, we've been, and I've said this, in different ways, there's an obstacle to our understanding of power in the universe because we've been given an image, which is a 19th century German image of a god with a big white beard and a white guy, a human being that's a patriarch who's up in the heavens. And if you're good, you're protected. And if you're bad, you're punished.
Yeah.
And that's not Jewish.
But the Psalms talk about God as though.
Yes, but what I'm trying to get to is that they're talking in 2,500-year-old language,
Yeah.
which if we get to the truth underneath the language they're talking about, the psalmist is not talking about a big white guy with a beard either, except that's the language, just like your language or our language of psychology in today's world of understanding what truth is. In 2,500 years, if we read something about how somebody's ego prevented them from understanding their place in the universe, there is no way in 2,500 years is people are going to understand the word ego. So
Yeah.
they're talking about a power in the universe. And what I'm trying to do in this class is get us to understand what the human experience is underneath it, connecting to something so much bigger. And that power is exactly what will transform us. So I think this is beautiful and very deep and very connected to that truth.
Thank you.
So I stay away. And the problem is language and images that we've been, imposed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the psalmist is using religious language of their day. And that's true. And then we have to try and say, okay, what does it mean for us? What would this power mean? How do we feel? It's just so, I don't know much about Buddhism, but for instance, the one thing that I find very meaningful is to look at suffering differently than non-Buddhists typically look at suffering. And I've learned a lot from that suffering, it's not the end of the story, right? It doesn't mean necessarily you're bad or good, but that suffering is going to enable you to go somewhere you might not have been able to go. And forgive me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but the power of changing the prism by which we look at things is deep. And that's what, and this is beautiful here. That giving you meaning, that you're a part of something bigger. I don't think that God comes in and protects us, and swoops us up because we're like we imagine some parent would.
Right. That's the imagery I always think of, that
Right, and I
people are
don't think
thinking about God. It's like, is that a parent who's going to
childish.
protect them?
Right, that's kind of like a childish, but we use language because we're human beings. We're human beings that are trying to speak about something which is ineffable, right? Something which is unknowable, unspeakable, but the only way we can talk about it is with language. And what you've done here, I think, is a really beautiful expression of that.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much.
I love your comments. Thank you.
I love having you in the class, Alice.
Thanks.
So much. So let's take our breath to appreciate Alice's offering. And move on to Goldalee, read by Sherry.
You're Yud Hey Vav Hey now, and not the noise of no. I'm sorry, forgive us. Thank you. I love you. I'm so sorry, dear and holy and beloved Mother, Father, becoming one, for anything ever humanly offered, which is unbecoming of to you. Thank you for protecting my senses from any unlove, from harsh sights, tongues, thoughts, all reaction sounds without and within. Thank you for turning my shoulders east, writing my path towards you, Shekhinah, even though and when shout sounds of unkindness tug at my Western chest mind's focused, walled focus. Thanks for reaching inside this dusty din, Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, filled with the noise of an oft-times tune-catching, toxic, worldly no. As your smiling, intense, bright attention, not mine, seek to find me out and do, no matter how many stumbling again and agains, as thoughts borrowed from yours fall and slip into a Kavanah sleep and tumble away from you. In thanksgiving, will I strive to not strive. Oh, sweet, mighty Mommy Daddy, who gently takes my tired, turbulent tumult by the hand to share an unworldly time out shore. We stop, breathe, be, receive. As you steer us home to your breath, your still, quiet, not so silent voice, your hushed listening, patiently awaiting my heart of hearing in our forever together. Stilled yet awake are you, assuring, safely tucked, softly beside me, in your present pause, the lulling goodness of your love's loud, silent, yes. Thank you. How can I try to love better? Please forgive me, us, again in advance, that I might live to learn to love your love another day. Only just right now, only always, only ever. And let us say,
Gorgeous, Sherry. Speak to us. I mean, Goldalee, speak to us. Gorgeous reading, Sherry.
thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. Good morning. Thank you.
Sherry definitely gets some kind of award for being the pinch reader.
Yes,
My honor.
thank you. Not sure what to say today.
Whenever you don't know what to say, tell us about the process of writing it. How did it happen from Psalm 16? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's always the same, Rabbi, that what you say is so true, because I have so many thoughts. I began a few poems But it really, in a way, doesn't matter. It's just because the poem will take you where it wants to go. So I wrote one about a few different ideas, and then wrote about an upset with people, even in our own tribe, so to speak, who it's very upsetting, who respond a certain way, and I just then got to a place of this speaking to God about it, and it felt better to just give it to God, so to speak, because underneath that passion of upset is what I do want to focus on. So I just stayed with that, and then just responding to all the different translations we read together. Yeah, I mean, that's
Beautiful. Harold, can you scroll down a little bit? I wanted to go back to, there's a lot here. So it's yeah, I love this. Who gently takes my tired, turbulent tumult by the hand to share an unworldly time out shore. We stop, breathe, be, receive as you steer us home to your breath. Your still, quiet, not so silent voice. It's just gorgeous. Gorgeous.
Thank you.
And in the world in which we're living, which is so full of such Sturm and Drang and drama and tumult, this is very powerful.
And
Thank you.
I will also say that I worked carefully with Goldie to make sure that we respected her formatting, because she does such a beautiful artistic job of the enjambement,
Yep.
where she doesn't end a sentence at the end of one of her stanzas. It continues, as you steer us home to your breath,
Yes. And
or
that's
mommy,
very
daddy,
powerful.
who gently takes. It's beautifully, beautifully presented.
Yep.
Thank you
Beautiful
so much, Harold.
construction, and thank you so much, Goldie. This is gorgeous.
Thank
All right, let's
Thank
take
you
our
all.
moment to catch our breath after Goldie's offering. And move on to Sarah's secret.
There, but for the grace of God go I, blasts out of Pandora.com, a Michtam tune of a time-traveling David. Guard me, my best self, as I confide in you. While young, I roller skated down Hickory Road to this disco hit and others, bopping and weaving in a Stanford neighborhood, where I was one of only 5 Jews. The other 4 were my mother, father, and older sisters. Let's find a place, they say, somewhere far away, with no blacks, no Jews, and no gays. There, but for the grace of God, go I. There, but for the grace of God, there go I. 40 years later, my wife and I live in a racially diverse neighborhood far from where we each grew up. Pat and I wouldn't mind being locked down here forever. My best self and Pat are my reward and my destiny, and our estate lovely and well planned. There are 2 Jews and 2 out lesbians in the Cotton Plant Woods development of Memphis, and both of them live in our house. We're the only ones in the neighborhood, or as I like to say, the first ones. Post-cancer, Pat has just 1 kidney, and I do not doubt that her conscience is clear. Mine too. How lucky that Pat didn't die. Even my best self couldn't save her. God, as a doctor-directed robot, removed her cancerous kidney, and love and care by our family Shoal community and I helped her heal 2 Junes ago. My worst fear is losing Pat too soon, but I will never be abandoned, I know too. Rabbi Kleinbaum reminded me after my puffed up version of Psalm 9 to be ready not only for good times, but for trying ones again too. In nearly 30 years together so far, Pat and I have lost our mothers, 2 beloved feline daughters, a couple of jobs, dear friends to AIDS, cancer, and other illnesses, one of 4 kidneys, and we're weathering a pandemic. I've trod a path of trying times. Right now, I'm grabbing joy for as long as it lasts. Yes, even during this plague. With Pat, I am indoor rowing, reading, solving, playing, swimming, praying, singing, cooking, viewing, laughing, loving. The delights of my life are at hand.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful, Sarah. So speak to us. Tell us about writing this.
So, a few things popped out at me as we were, as I was looking for what spoke to me in the psalm. This idea of others in the land. I really did think back to how we were the only Jews in our neighborhood growing up, and now, we're the only Jews and lesbians in our neighborhood so far. And how everything like still works out. But also I thought about this whole right hand business that I told you annoyed me so much, and you were so kind and said, then ignore it. I thought, no, I'm going to solve it. And I solved it by saying at hand, and the kidney was irresistible, finding out that conscience and kidney were the same word. And my wife really did survive, as you know, kidney cancer. Yeah. So, and finally, this thing of the words that really blared at me when we were studying the psalm, you kept saying, of all the psalms, this one really allows for joy. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that line about my estate is lovely, my country and my estate is lovely. We've been so intentional with this move, and this estate is lovely, and our estate is now well planned because we all could die at any second with this pandemic. So I just feel like this psalm super spoke to me. That's what this is all about. Thank you.
Beautiful. And this is a great example of the personal storytelling in a psalm. And you do it so beautifully, Sarah, and pull us along in the story of your life using concrete, not just not just vague descriptions, but being very concrete makes it very, very, very meaningful. Love it. Really love it, Sarah. Thank you so much. And I love that you make us have a Memphis chapter of the Psalms class. So we go from Tel Aviv and Bulgaria. I think you're do we have anybody farther west than Sarah? Do we have well, I guess Lori when you were in Seattle and when I was in LA, but I don't think we have regulars from the West Coast. So I think, Sarah, you're our farthest west. No, oh, you're right. Yeah, Memphis is the farthest, yeah.
All right, take our breath for Sarah's beautiful offering and move on to Shep. Shep, will you be reading or will your designated reader be reading for you?
I will have my designated reader read for me. I just want to say it's amazing. We all read the same psalm and have completely different interpretations. Mine's totally different from everybody's.
Great, perfect. That makes me very happy, Shep.
You'll see.
The Lord is the one true God. There is no other. The powerful ones in my land had espoused hate and a belief in other gods. I did not follow them. I will not even say their names. I will always look to Adonai. I have tied my fate and faith in you. Behold, my delightful country has been redeemed. How lovely it is. I thank the Lord. I bless God who has guided my life and my country by day and by night. Your constant presence causes my whole body to rejoice. I am comforted as you are at my left side always. I know well that you will never abandon your faithful servant and his beautiful land. I will walk in your light for all the days of my life. Perfect joy is at your left hand.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for that reading. So Shep, talk to us.
Well, in the Chavruta I was with all other lefties. Of course, I'm a convert, but I forgot Jerusalem. But anyway, so the thing is, I just thought that was something I can pick up on about the right-handedness of the world, because I see things from the left as kind of an other identity. And I just, when they talked about the delightful land, I just picked up on that one part, thinking about our land, which wasn't so delightful for 4 years, and how it's kind of been redeemed, and how grateful I am, basically.
So it's so interesting how you are able to find a way to just deal with that by just naming the left hand, right? By saying perfect
Right.
joy is at your left hand.
Right. I don't
Doing
have
it.
much of a right hand
Beautiful,
left.
Jeff. Beautiful. Go for it. Beautiful.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Absolutely go for it. Reject it and take it on and celebrate it. I think that's
Exactly.
beautiful.
Thank
So
you, Rabbi. I
thank you,
love you.
Bubala. Just stay in one direction. Don't go upside down, okay?
Yeah, right. I know. Outer space. Yeah.
And it is beautiful too, in a moment of feeling, this is also very Jewish and very in the tradition of Psalms, to express gratitude for the national. And we haven't encountered too many of those Psalms yet. In fact, I don't think we've encountered a single one yet, but you'll see there are Psalms which celebrate the national or political in a different way than we've seen yet. And you're doing that beautifully here. And it doesn't mean that people get nervous whenever we celebrate joy. And for you too, Sarah, like, oh my God, it doesn't, of course, it doesn't mean there won't be moments of where it goes there. But part of what the Psalms teach us is for a moment, it's okay to just celebrate something that for which you feel joy. It doesn't speak to the fact, doesn't mean that you therefore are closing your eyes or not being open to the pain in the world. It means you're able to celebrate, to exercise the muscle of joy and use this psalm to say it. For this moment, it's a snapshot of a moment. A psalm, a piece of art, is always a snapshot of a moment. And so thank you for celebrating the moment we feel like whew, we dodged a bullet. Every day we wake up and hear President Biden and we feel good about that. And fantastic. Just like Sarah was able to say in her moment, she's able to express joy about what's happening, looking for that. And so that's a beautiful muscle to exercise. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right, one last breath here before we move on to our final offering of Psalm 16 from Linda Watskin. Linda.
Life's like the grand old opera. Because my tulips dig their way out of winter's hard-packed snow. Because every wave was born in the Arctic Ocean. Because every artist feels colors in her soul. Because this second is pushed aside by another on its way. Because loving like I was 20.
Beautiful, Linda. Tell us about this.
Okay, I wrote something. No, you would ask that I wrote something. On the first part of because of the tulips, I wrote the repetition reminds me that God shows us all that some of things appear and disappear and reappear every year.
Uh-huh.
On the second one, because God shows me that some things have a pattern, I too have the pattern.
Aha.
The third one, that gives me the glorious feeling of knowing that the gift of God's creation gives me a sense of creation. And on the fourth one, the reality of time, of the number of years allotted to me by God. And then the last one is self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. I love the rhythm very much. I love that each of the stanzas begins with because as it's kind of like your what's the word? Not motto, but your expression of your philosophy of life. And it's so powerful. And is there anything more moving than tulips digging their way out of winter's hard-packed snow? Every spring, I'm shocked at how powerful that is. It's not just a metaphor, right? It's not just a metaphor to watch the green pop up and to see the early flowers and to see that expression of the most powerful expression of hope and rebirth, right? I find it very moving. And just each of these are so deeply true. Every one of them, every wave born in the Arctic, every artist feels colors in their soul, because this second is pushed aside by another on its way. Because just in these very simple, very, very simple phrases, you go to some of the deepest truths of life. So beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Linda, I just had a question. I think I might have had this wrong. Is the first line "Life is like the Grand Ole Opry," the Grand Old Opera? Which did you prefer?
Well, I think it's the Grand Ole Opry, you know, the way it's written down
Okay.
in Nashville.
All right, got it. Thank you. All right, we did it.
Beautiful.
offerings.
I'm so moved by all of these offerings, everyone. So we have a little bit of a switch, Harold. I'll explain this
Yes,
now,
I was
okay?
going to ask you to explain that.
Yes. So our former intern, Ben Dime, is offering his senior sermon on Thursday, and I make it a point of going to every senior sermon of our former interns. And it's very important to them, of course, that I go to them. So it conflicts with our class. So what Harold and I discussed is that we would shift the Chavruta for Psalm 17 to Thursday, so that we will do the Chavruta on Thursday, and tomorrow I will teach. So we'll just switch the 2 days. If anybody would like to come to it's a HUC Thursday prayer service, their tefillah, and then Ben will give his senior sermon as part of the tefillah. Ben was our Cooperberg Ripmaster rabbinical intern last year, and as part of their studies, each rabbinical student has to offer a senior sermon as part of their thing. So we could put in the Facebook group. We put in. I think we put out on CBSC's Facebook page
I didn't
the
see it.
link.
I'm looking at the HUC website and I'm not seeing it.
I have the link. I can send it to you, Harold, and we'll put it in the
Got it.
Psalms class. How's that?
That's great.
So I'm going to teach tomorrow, and then Thursday will be Chavruta.
All right.
Okay.
And I will be sending, as soon as this class is over, I'll be sending all of the Psalm 16 offerings around, plus yesterday in today's chat. And I would like to offer a big thank you to Annika Cooper, who did double duty this week. Not only did she coordinate all of the Psalm 16 offerings, she coordinated everything that was submitted, the hundreds of offerings for the 16th. And thank you, Annika. We could not do this without you. All right, everybody. Until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow, everybody. Wonderful to see you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mm.